I want to take just a few minutes first to congratulate our leader, Senator Reid, for leading the Senate finally into the 21st century. That's the step that we've taken today. Thank you very much, Leader Reid, for your courageous action in making sure that the Senate can now work and get our work done. I've waited 18 years for this moment. In 1995, when we were in the minority, I proposed changing the rules on filibuster. I've been proposing it ever since. What's really happened is that this war has escalated, this war on both sides. I said at the time in 1995 that it was like an arms race, that if we didn't do something about it, the Senate would reach a point where we wouldn't be able to function. Well, I thought, perhaps at that time, I thought my words were a little apocalyptic, but as it turned out, they weren't at all. And so this is a bright day for the United States Senate and for our country to finally be able to move ahead on nominations so that any president, not just this president, any president can put together his executive branch under our Constitution. A president should have the people that he or she wants to form their executive branch. Every senator here gets to pick his or her own staff. We don't have to have the House vote on it or anybody else. It's true of every member of the House or Senate. It's true of the judiciary, the third branch of government. They can hire their clerks or their staff without coming to us. And so now I think it's appropriate that any president can now form their executive branch with only 51 votes needed in the United States Senate, not a supermajority. So that is a huge step in the right direction. And now we can confirm judges of all the courts less than the Supreme Court, circuits and district court judges, again, with 51 votes, without this supermajority that's been filibustering for so long. Now, I listened to the Republican leader during the run-up to these votes, and he said that we were somehow going to break the rules. Break the rules to make a new rule. Well, we did not break the rules. With the vote that we just had, the Senate broke no rules. The rules provide for a 51-vote, non-debatable motion to overturn the ruling of the chair. We've done it many times in the past, many times in the past. So we did not break the rules, simply used the rules to make sure that the Senate could function and that we can get our nominees through. I like what the writer Gail Collins said in her column this morning in the New York Times about these rules changes. She's had a lot of good things here, but she talked about how we were calling it the nuclear option. And she proffered that, probably called that because some think changing the rules here is worse than nuclear war. But it's not. It's not. It's time that we change these rules. And the Republican leader earlier said it was the Democrats who started this. The Democrats started this. It reminds me of a schoolyard fight between a couple of adolescents. And the teacher's trying to break it up. And this kid says, no, he hit me first. No, the other one says, no, he hit me first. No, he stepped on my toe first. No, he got in my road first. Who cares who started it? It's time to stop it. Even if I accept the fact that Democrats started it, maybe they can prove that we did. Possible, way back when. Well, it's escalated. It turned from a punch here and a punch there to almost extreme fighting. It got to the point where we can't function. Just on nominations alone, we've had 168 nominations since 1949. I kind of picked that date because that's when all this filibuster stuff kind of really started. 168. 82 of those have been under this president. 82. So that's why I mean, it's not worth it to talk about who started this. Fine. If they want to say the Democrats started, I'll say fine, we started it. But it's escalated and gone beyond all bounds. As I said, in 1995, it's turned into an arms race. So it's time to stop it. And that's what we did this morning with this vote. We took a step in the right direction. In 2008, Norman Ornstein, who's a congressional scholar, wrote about the broken Senate, our broken Senate, how we couldn't function. But you can go back even beyond that. In 1985, my first year here, Senator Thomas Eagleton, my neighbor to the south, said that the Senate is now in a state of incipient anarchy. I think we had something like 20 or 30 filibusters in the Congress before that. So this has been escalating over a long period of time. And it was time to stop it. And that's what we did this morning. So I say this is a big step in the right direction. But now we need to take it another step further, and that is to change filibuster on legislation. We need to change it as it pertains to legislation. Now, for example, we just had the spectacle of a bill that I reported out of our committee, unanimous, Republicans and Democrats, passed the floor of the House unanimously, comes to the Senate. One senator held it up for 10 days, stopped everything for 10 days. And guess what? It finally passed by unanimous consent. Should one senator be able to stop things around here like that? So it's time to move ahead, to get rid of the legislature, at the same time to protect the right of the minority to offer amendments that are relevant and germane, to debate them, and to have a vote on them. Not that they should win it, but the minority should be able to offer, debate, and have a vote on relevant and germane amendments to legislation. I proposed 18 years ago a formula that, quite frankly, was first proposed by Senator Dole many, many years before that. And that was on a cloture vote to end a filibuster. The first time had to be 60 votes. Then you could wait 3 days, file a new petition with the requisite signatures, and at that time you'd need 57 votes. And then, if you didn't have 57 votes, you could wait 3 more days, file a new petition on the same bill or amendment, and then it would require 54 votes. If you didn't have 54, then you would wait 3 days, file a new petition, then you needed 51 votes. So at some point, the Senate could act, the majority could act on legislation, but the minority would have the right to slow things down, to, as Senator George Hoare said in 1897, and he said, to slow things down, to give sober second thought to legislation here in the Senate. Sober second thought. Not to stop it, not to block it. Slow things down, yes. Give second thought. Maybe things shouldn't be rushed into. Understand that. Maybe things should be amended. The minority ought to have that right to offer those amendments. Not just spurious amendments, but amendments that are relevant and germane to the legislation. But ultimately, 51 should decide in this Senate on how we proceed, what we vote on, and the outcome of the vote. So I hope that the vote today leads the Senate to adopt such an approach in January of 2015. When the new Senate comes in, there'll be a new Congress. I hope at that point that the Senate, I won't be here for it, but I hope the Senate will then take that next step of cutting down on the blatant use of the filibuster on legislation. So if of the action just taken here today, here's what I predict. I predict the sky will not fall, the oceans will not dry up, a plague of locusts will not cover the earth, and the vast majority of Americans will go on with their lives as before. But I do predict that our government will work better. A president will be able to form an executive branch. Our judiciary will function better. And the U.S. Senate will be able to move qualified nominees through the Senate in a more responsible manner. So, Mr. President, this is a good day for the Senate, a good day for our nation. The Senate now enters the 21st century. And again, I congratulate Leader Reid for bringing the Senate forward. A courageous action. I compliment all my fellow senators who upheld that vote, upheld overruling the ruling of the chair, so that from now on we only need 51 votes to close debate and move nominations and judges through the United States Senate. I yield the floor.